The story of Samson's birth is quite extraordinary. Samson's father, Manoah, hails from the tribe of Dan, and his mother, Manoah's wife, has been unable to conceive. One day, while Manoah's wife is alone, an angel appears to her and foretells the birth of her son, Samson. During this encounter, the angel provides her with specific instructions on how to raise her child, as Samson is destined to be a Nazirite. In Numbers, chapter 6, verses 2 through 5, God lays out the rules for those taking a Nazirite vow. This vow involves dedicating oneself to the Lord for a set period. During this time, they must abstain from drinking wine or any alcoholic beverages. Additionally, they are not allowed to cut their hair, and no razor should touch their heads. In Samson's case, he was chosen by God to be a Nazirite for his entire life. Even his mother had to follow the Nazirite vow during her pregnancy. As Samson grew, God blessed him immensely. He was a unique individual with immense potential. God had a special plan for Samson. He was to lead Israel's army against their enemies, and to fulfill this role, God endowed Samson with extraordinary strength. He is renowned as the strongest man in the Bible. His strength was so remarkable that he once killed a lion with his bare hands and defeated an army of 1,000 men single-handedly. However, despite his immense physical strength, Samson had a significant weakness: his attraction to women, especially a woman named Delilah. This formidable man had a vulnerability, and Delilah was at the heart of it. Samson experienced what we call a fatal attraction. A fatal attraction is when someone's attraction to a person or thing is so powerful that it clouds their judgment and impairs their reasoning. Now, let's turn our attention to Delilah. Delilah was a woman driven by her love for money. Self-seeking and self-absorbed, she was approached by the lords of the Philistines with a mission: to entice Samson and discover the secret of his immense strength, so they could overpower him. They promised Delilah a hefty reward if she succeeded, offering each 1,100 pieces of silver. Enticed by this offer, Delilah agreed and began a relationship with Samson. On 3 separate occasions, she asked Samson to reveal the source of his strength, and each time, Samson deceived her. Each lie led to a situation where Samson was tested by the scenario he had falsely described. In Judges, chapter 16, verses 6 through 12, we see the exchanges between Delilah and Samson. Delilah asked, Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound to afflict you." Samson responded, If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." The lords of the Philistines brought Delilah 7 fresh bowstrings, and she bound Samson with them. Men were hiding in the room, ready to capture him. Delilah then said, The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But Samson snapped the bowstrings as easily as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire. Thus, the secret of his strength remained unknown. Frustrated, Delilah said to Samson, Look, you have mocked me and told me lies. Now, please tell me how you can be bound." Samson replied, If they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Delilah took new ropes and bound him, repeating, The Philistines are upon you, Samson." But once again, men were lying in wait in the room. But Samson broke the ropes off his arms like threads. This pattern repeated for a 3rd time, with Delilah's attempts failing again. In a final, desperate effort, Delilah resorted to manipulation, saying, How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You've mocked me these 3 times and haven't told me where your great strength lies." Caught up in his feelings, whether they were lust, love, or something else, Samson eventually revealed the truth, despite Delilah's prior betrayals. He confessed, No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaved, my strength will leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man." Delilah's actions highlighted her true nature, driven purely by her love for money. She called the lords of the Philistines, who came with the promised silver. In verse 19, the Bible recounts that Delilah lulled Samson to sleep on her knees, then called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. Her feigned love for Samson was a ploy for wealth, reflecting a world that is still filled with similar deceit. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Not every beautiful face has a kind soul. Judges, chapter 16, verses 21 to 22, describe the aftermath. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze shackles, and he was set to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Even the strongest men have weaknesses and struggles. David was a great leader, but he had his issues with women. Similarly, Solomon, known as the wisest king in the Bible, had his own vulnerabilities. But he had his weaknesses. Job, described as an upright and blameless man, struggled with his eyes to such an extent that he made a covenant with them. Samson, on the other hand, operated purely on his emotions and chose to ignore all the glaring red flags. Despite Delilah's 3 failed attempts to subdue him, Samson continued to lie to her. Samson knew Delilah was out to get him. He was fully aware that she couldn't be trusted, which is why he deceived her multiple times. Even today, there are still women like Delilah, self-seeking and self-absorbed, willing to do anything to achieve their goals, even if it means betraying those who trust them. Many men have had their lives ruined by a Delilah. This harsh reality underscores the importance of vigilance. While there are indeed God-fearing, wonderful women in this world, one must also be wary of those like Delilah. To avoid falling into similar traps, it's crucial not to let lust and emotion cloud your judgment. Making decisions based on emotions or feelings, especially lust, can lead to dire consequences. Today, we'll explore lessons against 2 things: emotions and lust. First, emotions. We all have them, and they are not inherently evil. Having emotions isn't a weakness, but nowhere in the Bible are we encouraged to let emotions guide our actions. The Bible does not instruct us to follow our feelings. Emotions should not dictate our decisions, yet Delilah cleverly manipulated Samson by appealing to his emotions. She asked, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me?" By targeting his emotions instead of his mind, she bypassed his logical thinking, which would have warned him against trusting her. As men and women, we must avoid making decisions based on our feelings alone. Emotions can blind us to the facts, as they did with Samson. He was a great man, but his feelings made him overlook the clear evidence that Delilah was deceitful. Many of you listening now might also be destined for great things, but you have a weakness that holds you back. If we're being completely honest, this weakness can jeopardize your potential. To lead a fulfilling life and achieve your goals, it's essential to recognize and address these weaknesses. Don't let emotions and lust steer your decisions. Instead, rely on wisdom and discernment to navigate your path, ensuring you stay true to your purpose and avoid the pitfalls that ensnared Samson. I can personally attest to making bad decisions based on emotions rather than relying on my knowledge of God's Word. We've all been there. The Bible does not contain a single verse encouraging us to follow our feelings or indicating that God communicates through our emotions. Feelings can be deceptive, ever-changing, and often confusing. Think about how many people who loved each other a decade ago now can't stand each other. Feelings change, so don't let them rule your life like Samson did. Focus on a person's character. If Samson had considered Delilah's character, he would have realized that despite her beauty, she was an evil woman who valued money above all else. Now, let's talk about lust. Lust can turn a strong man weak, and that's a truth worth acknowledging. Lust can weaken a strong woman too. It clouds judgment, destroys lives, breaks up homes, damages health, drains finances, robs joy, and creates a deeper hole than one could ever imagine. Most importantly, lust puts a wall between you and God. Judges chapter 16, verse 20, illustrates this perfectly. Then she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." So he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as before, at other times, and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. Lust had put a wall between Samson and God, leaving him unaware of God's departure. As men and women, we need to recognize that there are certain things in life we must avoid because they can create a barrier between us and God. Our decisions should be based on wisdom and discernment, not fleeting emotions or destructive lusts. By understanding and acknowledging our weaknesses, we can avoid the pitfalls that ensnared Samson and stay true to our purpose, maintaining a close relationship with God. Fatal attraction goes beyond a normal attraction and becomes a morbid infatuation with someone, reaching a point where it can become unhealthy and dangerous. Unchecked lust can lead you to a place where you find yourself wondering, how did I get here? This is exactly where Samson found himself. I share this because I have witnessed it firsthand. I have seen lust do this to people. One decision driven by lust can literally change your entire life. It can alter your path in ways you never imagined. So, don't make decisions based on your emotions. Don't make decisions based on lust. Emotions and lust can cloud your judgment and lead you astray, just as they did with Samson. Be mindful of your decisions and let wisdom guide you instead. If you found value in today's discussion, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. We believe in the power of prayer, and we're committed to praying for each and every subscriber. By subscribing, you become a part of our community, where we support and uplift one another. Don't miss out on the opportunity to join us on this journey of faith and growth. Subscribe now, and let's walk this path together.